In his 1968 book, The Empty Space, renowned British theatre director Peter Brook wrote, "I can take any empty space and call it a bare stage. A man walks across this empty space whilst someone else is watching him, and this is all that is needed for an act of theatre to be engaged." For a film as austere and brutalist as Joel Coen's The Tragedy of Macbeth, Brook's sentiment feels especially fitting. Indeed, the world of this Macbeth is colorless, surreal, and, in many ways, empty. But not just any man walks across this empty space of a world. Denzel Washington does. There's plenty of well-deserved praise that has been heaped upon Joel Coen's adaptation of Macbeth, its unique visual aesthetic, diverse casting, and propulsive directing. But the center of gravity that holds the tragedy of Macbeth together is Denzel Washington's enthralling Oscar-nominated performance. So, what makes this take on the classic character so compelling? Three main elements stand out. 1. Washington humanizes Shakespeare's heightened language. 2. Washington possesses a relatable physicality in his performance. And 3. Washington creates a fresh character arc within an old story. The early modern English of Shakespeare's era is notoriously challenging for audiences today. Although a sense of appreciation can be experienced even by novices to Shakespeare's work, the overriding frustration of archaic words and sentence structure can stymie a rewarding exploration of the bard's stories, characters, and themes. Denzel Washington opens the door into Shakespeare's language by exchanging poetry for naturalism, fitting the iambic lines into the cadence of a modern speaker. As Alison Willmore, writing for New York Magazine, eloquently observes, Washington manages the near impossible feat of delivering his lines as though he's putting the words together in the moment, speaking some of the most famous sentences in the English language as though they're actually being dredged up out of Macbeth's roiling consciousness. This approach may cause chagrin for some Shakespearean performance purists who desire a more traditionally poetic delivery, but if the goal is to make Macbeth accessible to a wider audience, Washington and his fellow actors accomplished it with aplomb. For example, take this scene from early in the film, which transitions seamlessly from dialogue to monologue, conveying both the desire and doubt in Macbeth, as he contemplates the possibility of becoming king, but what it might cost to do so.
His supernatural soliciting cannot be ill, cannot be good. If ill, why have they given me earnest of success, commencing in a truth? I am Thane of Cawdor. If good, why do I yield to that suggestion, whose horrid image doth unfix my hair and make my seated heart knock at my ribs against the use of nature? Present fears are less than horrible imaginings. My thought, whose murder yet is but fantastical, shakes so my single state of man that function is smothered in surmise, and nothing is but what is not. If chance will have me king, why chance may crown me without my stirrup. Come what come may, time and the hour runs through the roughest day.
Of course, an actor's body is just as essential as their voice in creating a character. And when performing Shakespeare, the importance of that physicality is heightened. Movement and facial expression are capable of communicating to an audience what the dialogue by itself cannot, even dialogue as detailed and effervescent as Shakespeare's. Washington's performance and Coen's direction give meaningful movement and momentum to scenes that are often performed more or less stationary. The best examples come in the two most famous soliloquies from the play. The dagger soliloquy really leans into the "thou marshallest me the way that I was going" line by having Macbeth be physically compelled to march towards the dagger.
I see thee yet, in form as palpable as this which now I draw. Thou marshallest me the way that I was going, and such an instrument I was to use. Mine eyes are made the fools, or the other senses are else worth all the rest.
a dagger which, in actuality, is the door handle leading to Duncan's bedchamber.
I go, and it is done. The bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell.
The film's Tomorrow soliloquy also incorporates profound movement into the scene, as Macbeth literally descends the stairs towards death, while also foreshadowing his own demise.
Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, brief candle.
Finally, the film creates a unique character arc for Macbeth that's rarely seen. Oftentimes, Macbeth is portrayed as a young, up-and-coming soldier whose uncontrollable ambitions drive him into disaster and destruction. Denzel Washington is not that Macbeth. By contrast, Washington's Macbeth is experienced, contemplative, and, perhaps most obvious, older. At 66, Washington is one of the oldest actors to play the character on the screen, eclipsed only by Patrick Stewart at 69 years old in a 2010 BBC adaptation. Washington's age, and that of co-star Frances McDormand as Lady Macbeth, fundamentally shift the internal motivations of their characters. As Willmore notes, their presence gives new dimension to the characters' ruthless actions. Childless and with no chance of establishing a legacy of any sort, Macbeth murders his way to the throne of Scotland out of what feels much more openly like nihilism than ambition, as though he's looked ahead toward a dwindling future, promising few surprises and chosen violence instead. Washington's Macbeth doesn't seem to relish the power he accrues. His bloody climb up the ladder seems more like a desperate attempt to find meaning in a life that's closer to its end than its beginning. The final act of the film profoundly captures this characterization. As Macduff and Malcolm close in on Dunsinane, Macbeth's will to fight, let alone live, seems to crack before the battle even begins.
There is no flying hence, nor tarrying here. Ring the alarm bell! Blow, wind! Come back!
At least we'll die with harness on our back.
In a brilliant scene, he faces young Seward unarmed, winning the fight almost more by instinct than by design. In the climactic face-off with Macduff, Washington imbues Macbeth with a weary resignation, belying the bravura of his words.
Of all men else I have avoided thee, but get thee back. My soul is too much charged with blood of thine already.
I have no words. My voice is in my sword.
Let fall thy blade on vulnerable crest. I bear a charmed life which must not yield to one a woman born.
Spare thy charm. And let the angel whom thou still hast served tell thee Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped.
Accursed be that tongue that tells me so. I will not fight with thee.
Then yield thee, coward.
I will not yield. Kiss the ground before young Malcolm's feet and to be baited with a rabble's curse. Though Burnham would be come to Dunsinane, and thou oppose, being not of woman born, yet I will try the last. Lay on, Macduff, and damn be him that first cries, "Hold enough."
This depiction is punctuated by Macbeth's final moments, a vain display of caring more about his crown than his own life. Writing for the Los Angeles Review of Books, Julia Sirmons concludes that Coen brings out different shades and meanings of Macbeth, and the result is an adaptation strange and refreshing, haunted by past iterations without being stifled by the weight of homage. The same can be said of Denzel Washington's performance. He stands on the foundation of iconic actors such as Orson Welles and Ian McKellen before him, but has built his own unforgettable Macbeth, who shalt be king hereafter.